Welcome to Teach, Lead, and Inspire, the Legacy Series, a father-son podcast. 2 generations, 1 mission. When a Marine Corps dad and his Army veteran son sit down to talk life, legacy, and leadership, you know it's going to be real. This isn't just another podcast. It's a bridge between wisdom and action, between past lessons and future goals. Welcome to the conversation we all need, but few men ever get to have. Father, son, purpose. Let's go.
Want to miss those good tidbits.
Yeah, I don't want to miss those tidbits like we've done before and stuff like that. So, and what was I saying, the old man here? Oh, we were talking.
You were just talking about the PTSD and when it started to surface for you.
Oh, yeah. So I guess when I came back from the Gulf, from the first Gulf War and everything else, there were some things there that really bugged me. Was the fact that I was working in the reserves. I got out. I was doing just reserve work. I had actually, before I get out of the Marine Corps, alpha straight active duty, I was kind of really burnt and pissed off about some ways things had been handled. And I just finally just
Yeah,
couldn't take it anymore. Okay. And so I said, screw it. I'm going to get out. But I still stayed in the reserves because, see, that was my dream. See, my dream was to be a Marine in the military. I only had a
right.
dream that my goal was to be a major, which I wind up doing. And maybe that's why the brakes got off. I couldn't see myself. I had no vision for seeing myself as a general because there were no black generals
Right.
when I came in. And most of them, the blacks that had success of being the flag rank, were actually in the army. But I didn't like the army. But anyway,
Right.
I didn't like the uniform. So sorry. So, but when I came back from the desert and everything else, that I didn't realize the impact of events that was over there. I
Right.
just pushed them aside. No one was talking readily about PTSD or about the suicides and everything else. And because this was the age where we didn't have the internet, it didn't
Yeah.
have the cell phone, so that rapid communication was not there. And so as a result, PTSD was something that was part of me that was put in my back pocket that I just accepted of just the way. So when I was having some nightmares and stuff, but then I have to have somebody to tell me about them. Okay,
Right.
so when I was with, your brother's mom, Esco, when I was with her, and we were, just normal sleeping. She never woke me up and told me I was talking in my sleep or any of that stuff. Never.
Right.
Okay, so
Right.
you don't tell me that there's a problem. I'm saying there is no problem. Okay. Um, I do know that I was having some dreams and everything else, recurring dreams. Okay. I noticed I had been having the same recurring dream. And this one
Right.
dream I was having was a dream about deployment. So I was deployed. I had orders, so I was shipping out. And right before the time came for me to ship out, things would just get all screwed up. Like for instance, I couldn't find my uniforms, so I couldn't find my sea bag.
Right.
Or I could find my uniform, but I couldn't find my belt. Or I couldn't find my cover. Or I couldn't find my passports. Or I couldn't find my copies of my orders. It was all that type of stuff that was going on, and that was just really
Right.
just frustrating me because that just wasn't. And that dream had been recurring with me for years, but still I didn't connect it to PTSD. I didn't connect it. Um, it wasn't until I had an incident. So I went, with everything else. So when I got out, I didn't want to have anything to do with the military. That's why I was doing the bartending. The only thing that made me happy was I like singing. And so that's why I was karaoke hosting. I was a DJ. I was doing the DJ business. Um, but it was like an escape. I was doing all the wrong crap I shouldn't have. So there was no way for
Right.
a relationship to keep going if you're in a bar.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So as a bartender or a DJ in a nightclub, working and getting out at 2, coming back home about like 3:30. That's a
Yeah, no,
recipe.
no.
That's a recipe. It was a recipe for disaster and not
Yeah,
having a lasting relationship because, when I'm up there DJing, I'm up there concentrating on the music. And
right.
as a DJ, I learned that I don't care what song I played from the club open 8:30. I don't care what song verse I played from 8:30 to 10 o'clock. It'll make no difference.
Hmm.
That was because people were in the mood. In other words, they didn't have enough alcohol in them to get over their inhibitions about getting up there. But as a DJ, I
Right.
knew my job was to get the women dancing. And so if I get the girls dancing, so if someone will come requesting a song, a girl will come and request a song, my whole thing, I said, you got to get out there and shake it, lady. And if she did, I go ahead and play the song because you get the women out there, then the guys
Yeah.
start coming in, they start looking, the
Yep.
guys start buying drinks, and then by 10:30, then you go ahead and hit the jam, and it goes. So that was my lifestyle. I loved it, but it was not a place for raising a family or a long relationship because women were always going to hit on you.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay,
Most definitely.
so again, but all those things that was going on, I just kind of shoved. It wasn't until right before I got diagnosed with the prostate cancer, I had this, what I call the angry black woman syndrome. I'm going to say it. That's what
Mhm.
happened. I ran into one of these parents who's overly concerned about whether or not her kids were getting the right services. And she had several kids that was classified as special education.
Got it.
And but she had built her relationship that the administrators and the superintendent and everybody was afraid of her. And
Mm.
so I made a mistake of her, and her daughter had been placed with me by request by her in my classroom because of my success with students. And everything was fine. Her daughter had an A in the
Mhm.
course until one day she had a rock up under her butt, and she comes in and she asked me a question about had I read her daughter's IEP. And my answer was the wrong answer to say to a parent was I said no. And she immediately went off. She went off and went into the principal's office and says, we need to talk. We need to have a conference with this teacher of yours who hasn't read my daughter's IEP. She didn't give me a chance to talk. First of all, her daughter had an A in my class.
Right.
Okay. Second of all, the reason I didn't look at that IEP because I had looked at her IEP before, and her IEP wanted me to evaluate her on fourth and fifth grade math skills. How typical IEPs are written. You got high school
Mm.
students that classified as special ed, and then if you look at their IEP, they're asking them, can they do fractions or read a word problem and stuff? The kids in the 11th grade.
Uh. Wow. Okay.
I was teaching her 11th grade math and she was excelling. That was not in accordance with her IEP because she was up here, but
Hmm.
she didn't hear me. And so we had a conference and she started going off. I'm sitting there, my administrator and the resource officer are keeping their mouths shut because they know about her reputation. Didn't
Hmm.
tell me. And this black woman's going off at me about this. And I'm saying, you don't know what the heck you're talking about. But I got caught between a rock and a hard place. I
Hmm.
got up and walked out of the meeting, okay, where she was going. Instead of sitting there with this stuff, I said, I popped. I said, if I open my mouth, it's going to be worth it." I walked out. The principal came after me. He said, "You're going to go back there?" I said, "No, I'm done." I'm not going in there, you know? So that kind of got me in the hot water, except for the fact that I had a good, strong reputation.
Right.
So they just did a little pat on my hand. They had to do a little letter, like a non-punitive
Right.
letter of caution. Okay.
Had to do something. They were
Had to
looking
do
in your
something.
eye.
But then when that happened, then I started having nightmares. And also at the same time was the thing with the Ukraine war started going on, and they
Hmm.
were doing the flashback pictures of the war scenes. And I was seeing that, then I started getting flashbacks. I started getting flashbacks in Kuwait of walking into the firehouse that was at the Kuwait International Airport where they had just completely destroyed it. How the fire station that was on in the international airport, how the Iraqi soldiers that came in and defecated, just
Hmm.
took craps over everything, just to pull their pants down and just crapped everywhere. And I came in and I found my Marines in their sleep, and I said, "You can't be sleeping in this." I said, "You got to get out, you know." But it was those flashbacks that were starting, and then the nightmares started happening. And it was this fight or flee in my sleep. I'm up and
Hmm.
going like this, and so there were times that I started actually kicking kung fu in bed
Hmm.
and scaring the heck out of Carolyn. It was just really just scaring the heck out of her. And I didn't know what's going on. Then finally, she started telling me about these things. And one time, yeah, I woke up and I hear my arm move, and then she wakes up because I hit her on
Hmm.
the arm, and it scared the crap out of her. And that happened, and it was like I said, "Oh no, man, something's wrong." So, um, I used to have my drinks every night and everything else, and what I would typically do is have my drinks so I could drink so I can go to sleep.
Right.
Was that gap in sleep? That's what I was using. I was self-medicating on that. And Carolyn didn't drink. She didn't drink. She still don't drink. Never drink. Um, but I didn't think I had a problem associated with. But that incident scared me because I love this woman so much and how my life changed. And I said, well, then if this, maybe it's this. So I just started getting rid of things. The things still persisted. And then finally, I went to the doctor. I went to my primary care and I said, hey, I'm having nightmares and things that are going on. I said, I don't know what it is. I said, but I need help. And so I asked for the therapy sessions, and they gave me the therapy sessions. And thank God about
Right.
today because it was all done like with Zoom.
Yeah.
And when that had my first session, and when I started explaining what was going on, the doctor immediately said, "You got PTSD." And I said, "PTS what?" He says, "PTSD." And I'm saying, "No, I don't." He says, "Yeah, you do." And then started working through it. I started opening up and started having to create a journal so that every time when I was having any nightmares, I was having
Yep.
Carolyn. I said, when I was having these things, I said, you got to wake me up because I need to write down what the nightmare and stuff was about. So then I would get to the therapist and we would discuss it and then isolate it and then figure it out what was
Right.
going on. And then part of it wind up having to I had to do self-talks
Hmm.
uh, like right now at night. At night before I go to sleep, I have some affirmations and stuff that I actually read, and then I actually do a self-talk, and the self-talks are directed towards eliminating the dream. So like the dream that was about me in the military and stuff when I haven't been in the Marine Corps for over 20 years. So one of
Right.
my self-talks I say is that I'm no longer in the Marine, I'm not on active duty. So if I have a dream concerning that, wake my ass up. That's what I did. Then I had to do the one about the angry black woman at school. So I said, I'm not a teacher anymore. And so if I get around any angry black women, I said, I wake my ass up.
Right. Right.
You know?
Right. Right.
And I was having dreams about remember that we were talking last week about the car, about the Cadillac
Yeah.
that got broken
Yeah.
into. I had to do because of that incident, realizing that that was causing a dream because I was scared the heck of going and losing my job, which I wind up did losing my
Hmm.
job because of that. And then so I have a thing saying, hey, I don't have an old broken down car like I used to. Remember the old
Right.
broken
Yeah.
down brown station wagon that had cockroaches in it?
Yeah. I remember that one. I remember that one.
I mean, they were literally cockroaches in that damn car. And I said, no, that's not me now. Now I said, here in my car, I got a CT5 and I got an XT5. I got two brand new Cadillacs in the garage. And I said, I'm not living in poverty. I'm not living in the hood. All those things
Yep.
I had to
Same.
start going over and
Same.
saying.
I See, hearing you put it and phrase it like that makes me realize that, in all honesty, the majority of my life has just been a long series of PTSD moments, just one after the freaking other. Whether it was in the military or before the military. Just in hindsight, some of the things that I experienced at such a young age, some of the things that I had to go through,
Hmm.
was put through. And like one of my earliest memories, I think I was like maybe 6 or 7 at the earliest. I don't think I was any older than that. And my grandmother and we had just came back from like the store or the laundromat or something. We were having a little outing, just me and her, because my mom was always working, you know what I'm
Hmm.
saying? So my grandma would help take care of me. And so we're driving and we're being flagged down by one of my uncles. And so we stop, pick up my uncle, and we start driving, and we end up ultimately having to take him to the hospital. But what had happened was, I look over and I glance over, and I remember my uncle had I'm not gonna say which uncle, but I remember my uncle had on jean shorts and this t-shirt, and the left side of the abdomen was just beet red.
Oh,
And I was so young that I remember thinking, oh, my uncle must have been painting, you know what I'm saying, or working and got something on the shirt. No,
huh.
I'm sitting next to my uncle and he is literally bleeding out
Yeah.
because he had been stabbed at a crap game in
Okay.
one of the freaking little apartments in the
Yeah.
complex.
Yeah.
And like in hindsight, looking back on that now, it's just like,
Yeah.
oh, wow. Like, huh, I never should have been in that situation at 6 or 7 years old.
Yeah.
Um, like there's other things that happen, you know what I'm saying, outside of that, like, seeing my mother beaten in front of me, uh, and my little brother kidnapped by my then, you know what I'm saying, for all intents and purposes, stepfather. Uh, the majority of my young adolescence was spent watching my mother be brutalized by this man that she swore up and down loved her. And that was one of the hardest things for me growing up, was to be put in that kind of situation. And like I said, I understand now that that was PTSD moments. I lived in
Yeah.
nothing but PTSD moments. My family constantly fighting, like physically fighting at functions and in the house, at my grandmother's house, inside the house, outside the house. My, you know what I'm saying, mother being constantly like, I remember being the one that had to take the photos of, for my mother after the fact for the police to use for the police report, on my little Polaroid,
Right.
because I just happened to have a camera handy, you know what I'm saying? And the cops was like, hey, kid, you know what I'm saying? Yada, yada, yada. And I'm like, you know, and I'm like, I think 9, almost 10 at the moment, because this was my middle brother that was a baby that I remember, I'm in the back seat and I don't even remember what the argument was about. And we weren't even halfway up the street from my grandmother's house on Hulk. You remember that house, don't you? The one across from the Urban League that
Okay.
my grandma used to have.
Right.
And so we were leaving her house to go to what was basically my mom and them's house, but I had been staying at my grandma's house because of all the fighting and stuff.
Right.
And so they had got another place. We were going to go, you know what I'm saying, check it out and everything. And about halfway up the street, they were arguing about something. And I remember he was driving. My mom was on the passenger side, and my little brother was in the, rear facing car seat in between them, and I'm in the back seat. And he stopped the car and proceeded to beat my mother over top of my little brother
In the car. Oh.
in the car. So
Oh,
not just
man.
beating her over his newborn child, but also beating her in front of me.
Okay.
Like it was like it was nothing. Like it's
Nothing.
just standard practice. This is what you do. Like
Wow.
this is what you do.
9 and 10 years old. So I'm trying
Yeah,
to remember you, but you came that when your mom had called about me taking you in.
that wasn't until later. That
Yeah,
was
that
about
was later. That was
yeah,
really when
that
you were in
I
high
was
school.
like a junior,
Right.
yeah, that was my junior year that I
That's right.
came to stay with you.
That's right.
The second half of my junior year, as a matter of fact, because I kept getting in trouble. But part of the reason why I kept getting in so much trouble
I can
was
see.
that's how my home life was.
That's
This
the
was
home life.
all I'm seeing is all of this violence, all of this nonsense. You know what I'm saying? All of these stabbings, shootings, killings, fightings. That was a daily occurrence. And it wasn't just necessarily my family that was going through that, but that's the environment
Right.
that I was subjected to, that I lived in. It was nothing for us to, what I'm saying, hear about, oh, your cousin so and so got shot, or oh, your cousin so and so got
Yeah.
stabbed, or to legitimately see somebody's face twisted and mangled. You know what I'm saying? I mean, shoot, I have a cousin, by the name of Buckshot. But his name is
Buckshot.
Buckshot because his back is still filled with buckshot.
Buckshot.
So it's like, you know, understanding now after being in the military what PTSD and what causes it and the trauma that is associated with it. Like I said, I had it well before I even went to the military. The military just gave me a different kind,
Right.
you know, but right before uh I even went to basic, uh and this is one of those ones that I don't talk about a lot of, like Misty knows about this and other things of that nature. Um, you know, I was in a vehicle with a friend of mine's that, we were just took a wrong turn, wrong place, wrong, wrong spot, and somebody decided to just open fire on our vehicle, you know?
Where was this
And
at? This
this
is
was in
in,
St. Louis, downtown St. Louis,
oh, okay.
city of St. Louis,
City of
basically.
St. Louis. Yeah.
Yeah, South Side St. Louis, basically.
Mhm.
And it wasn't intentional that we had took that turn or whatever. We were leaving some of our people's house, and they shot up our car because they thought we were someone else or thought we were there to do some ill will. We was
Right.
just freaking taking our butts home.
Yeah.
And they sprayed the car. And I lost a friend of mine that night.
Hmm.
And that still resonates with me because folks say, "Oh man, I'm sure you're probably all jacked up and tore from the military and seen this and seen that." Not to tell them like, man, in all honesty, the freaking military was a breeze, was a cakewalk in comparison to what I actually lived through.
Right.
To the point where when Ferguson and everything happened and everything else, and made all the major news and everything else, I thought to myself, I'm actually surprised it took this long. Uh, One of the reasons why my mom sent me down to live with you was because I was so out of pocket. Remember the conversation we had on the last episode
Mhm.
about that talk and everything else?
Yeah.
I had been involved in a race riot
Okay.
at my school. It was a situation where something had happened, but my mom didn't understand that it wasn't like your normal typical race riot per se. It actually started because some white kids picked on this other white kid because he hung out with us and was part of and played basketball and was part of the basketball team.
Right.
So that's what actually started the race riot.
Wow.
It wasn't like your normal, what I'm
Right.
saying, black on white. It was
Yeah.
us
Two
taking
two
up and
white kids
defending
going
him.
at each other. Yeah.
Right. You know what I'm saying? But it was us defending his
Yeah.
right to do and be who he wants to be.
Right.
Like, how you gonna jump on him and do what you're doing to him because he hangs out with us and plays basketball with us and he likes to chill with us? Like freaking evidently, there's a reason why. Look at how y'all acting, you
Hmm.
know? And so that's why she had sent me to come live with you because like freaking, I was one of the ones that was right there on the freaking front lines. Like, yeah, nah, you was not, what I'm saying, about to, hurt and you know what I'm saying, do nothing to my friend like that. Like, man, get out of here with that nonsense. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And how yeah, I know Kinlock. So a lot of that stuff with but someone that was in Kinlock, did y'all ever move out of Kinlock over to
Some
Ferguson and stuff?
yeah, so we lived so after we moved out of Kenlock, we ended up moving to what would be considered uh Jennings, I guess,
Okay.
Ferguson area.
Okay. Right.
Um over there in the Country Club Hills area.
Okay.
So
Country.
like that's what off of Lucas and Hunt.
Right. Oh, okay.
And like
Lucas and Hunt.
yeah.
Yeah.
And like we still got property over there still and stuff like that.
Yeah, I remember those
So
days. I
yeah,
know.
we
You just
finally
don't realize what
yeah.
all the stuff that we. I remember also talking about another traumatic event is that um, because when I was going to CBC and my dad worked the night shift, so he would work from 11 to 7. And
Hmm.
on Friday nights when they had during football season, they had football games. So I was going to CBC. So I wanted to go to the football game. And so my mom would have the car and she would go drop me off. And then she would come back home. And then what she was doing is that when the game was over, she would come back. But the time when she was leaving to go pick me up was roughly around like maybe about like 10 o'clock or so. And my dad was always waiting outside the house getting picked up by a friend of his to go to work. So there was about an hour gap there
Right.
when nobody was at home. So we
Right.
didn't have that, there was no home alarms and everything else. This was a home that we was on Veronica. No, it's not on Veronica Avenue. I'm trying to remember. It's right over by Lexington Elementary School that was off of Kings Highway. Um,
Okay.
but anyway, Dad had left, and what happened during that time point, a house got broken in. They busted the lower glass window that got into the basement.
Hmm.
And when we came in, because we had the garage there in that house, the garage was separated, not attached to the house. You had
Yep.
to park the
Yep.
car in the
Yep.
garage and you walked into the back screen porch. And so when we walked in, um, my mom noticed that there was stuff wrong. So we go into, because we only had a two-bedroom, one-bathroom house. But
Hmm.
inside the bedroom was all the stuff and the drawers and everything else was piled, stacked up on top of the bed. Then that's when we realized that they had broken it. And it had been somebody that we think that was around the neighborhood. And that house that we were renting, that was a house we were renting. We were actually renting it from Kurt Flood.
Mm.
You,
Okay.
you remember
Okay.
the Cardinals center fielder,
Yeah.
professional
Yeah.
baseball player? See, what I didn't know until I had a conversation with my uncle was that Kurt Flood used to routinely come to our family outings in the park at O'Fallon Park over
Okay.
in St. Louis. So, but that night, that vision of our house wasn't, it was a point that we weren't feeling safe. So that's
Yep.
what prompted
Yep.
my mom and dad to for us to move out into the suburbs over
Hmm.
there by Riverview Circle at the time point was called over on Veronica Avenue. And we were the first blacks, and there was no other blacks for I mean about a mile or so in those houses and stuff. It was a nice neighborhood, but
I was gonna say, I think I've driven past. So I remember one time I was taking my mom somewhere or something, and we were heading in that direction or down that way for something because she had rented a house that was like maybe a couple of streets over, I
mhm,
think, from that house. And I remember her pointing it out to me before or something
yeah,
of that nature. She was telling me that like that, you know what I'm saying, your dad used to live there, like, you know what I'm saying, at one point in time and everything else.
yeah, definitely. So uh, are you receiving any type of disability? I know that. So that was
Not
other
for
thing.
PTSD.
Yeah.
I am for freaking the reactive airway disease and like tinnitus. Nothing major. They denied my sleep apnea, and I
Mhm.
was just like, I have reactive airway disease. My lungs are jacked up. That's why I can't breathe when I sleep. You already said I need the CPAP, but you denied my sleep apnea claim. So I'm just like, all right, I got to do start and do some more claims.
Yeah.
I haven't done the PTSD or no mental, what I'm saying, claims yet or anything of that nature.
Yeah, I
Uh,
wasn't even I had not even even thought about disability. You know,
mm,
I just, I had my 10 years active. I had another 6.5 years that was on active that was in the reserves. But
mhm.
I had some broken time because when I went to Japan and everything, and so I didn't have enough time and stuff to get my regular retirement. And so I just dismissed it off until I was up for talking with Jared and he was talking about stuff, and then he was asking me about my nose, and so because of him, when he told me, this was right after I was having my episode and stuff like that. That's when I went to that VA app and actually went in and started making process. And then I started realizing other things, like my I am allergic. I went to have an allergic, allergy thing.
Allergy test. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and I'm allergic to everything. It's all screwed up because I was always doing this and
Yeah.
messing with my
You
nose and
know, it's
stuff.
funny.
Yeah,
It's funny. I've been having to deal with that a lot so much as to that's why I had shaved off my mustache is because I'm tired of always feeling like my nose is running
yeah.
or my nose is stuffy. I'm always having to blow it or like always feeling like something was either in my nose or getting
Mhm.
in my mustache. I was just like, what is going on? So that's one of the things I want to address with my doctor at my next appointment as well as getting an allergy test done
Yeah.
because I really truly think I have different allergies or something else is going on outside of the typical because this has been going on for a while now.
So where all were you deployed at?
Just
I mean,
freaking did some freaking work in Somalia and freaking I went to Bosnia.
okay, so you had Bosnia.
That's
So you went to Bosnia and also Somalia. Okay.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Right. So I know PTSD is something I've worked. So, but now the best part is that I, I learned how to adapt and do different things. I do magnesium is something that works well. I
Mm-hmm.
take a little teaspoon of magnesium with water. It's in that mellow out that I take as a drink. It relaxes. Magnesium is something that helps for relax. There's mood suppressants, but I'm using supplements, not because they tried to give me prescription meds, and that really messed me. That was not good. Prescription
So
med, two ways it didn't work. Okay, it messed. It wasn't working up here, made me feel groggy, and it wasn't working downstairs. If you know
see,
what I mean.
the only thing that they tried to put me on before was they tried to put me on well, they've had me on a couple of things. I don't even talk about the last nonsense they had me on. But one of the first things they ever put me on, and I immediately had to come off of it. This is years and years ago. This is like when I first got out and everything else. Finally trying to adjust to being a civilian and not snap out on people. And They put me on Paxil
Okay,
and it was the worst experience I ever had in my life. Yeah, it mellowed me out. It calmed me right down. They was right about that. But I didn't feel like I was in control. I didn't feel like I was myself. It made me feel like this is the statement that I used to say about it was even though you think it might make me better, it made me feel like if the world was ending, I would just snap a picture because I wouldn't care.
right.
And I didn't want to live my life like that. So even though I knew that I had a problem and I had problems, I knew I needed to get them fixed and taken care of.
Hmm.
I just knew that that wasn't the route for me as far as the prescriptions go and everything else. And everyone knows, what I'm saying, how I ended up, coping outside of therapy, did the therapy thing. Even, I'll be open and honest. There was a point in my life where I actually not necessarily want to hurt someone else, but I did want to hurt myself. And so I did do the whole voluntary 3 day thing. I went away. I went to VA up in freaking Washington, and freaking I was gone away from my family for 3 days because I didn't want to hurt myself. But
Right.
I knew that, like you said, the nightmares, the dreams, all the reoccurring thoughts, what me and my friends like to joke about, we call the dark place. Me and all of my people that, you know, I served with and we went through some things together, we always remind ourselves to be conscious of allowing ourselves to go to that dark place. And if we stay there too long, you know, call each other, talk to each other, reach out to each other, do whatever we might need to do to, you know, put ourselves in a better position mentally, because it can be hard. Dealing with the things that you have to deal with when you've been through the things that you've been through. You've seen the things you've seen, you've experienced the things you've seen, um, or even sometimes just how a certain smell when you might go somewhere could trigger a memory, or a certain fragrance from a flower could trigger a memory or send you somewhere, or you know, a certain area might remind you of a similar area and you might be triggered. So
Right.
those were things that I had to constantly remind myself that I there's a better way to be better. I just
Mhm.
have to find a way to work through what I need to work through, talk to whoever it is I need to talk to, and do whatever it is I need to do to survive. Because just like you said, you realized that you were having to have that drink before you go to bed and everything else, or whatever that case may be, to have to cope.
Mhm.
You know, we all know that I've been doing the similar thing for freaking years now, because legitimately it was the only thing, and had been the only thing until honestly I started riding motorcycles, to be quite honest with you, that was therapeutic for me.
Mhm.
And people think I'm out here riding fast and being silly, being goofy, Papa Willies. No, it literally just reminds me temporarily of being a kid again, when I didn't have any worries or any responsibilities. And that's how I cope better now than I think I have ever coped before with the PTSD, the mental stress, any kind of fatigue just in life. And I'm not saying it because that's for everybody, but I'm just saying I've realized that we have to start replacing those negative memories and negative feelings with more positive ones. So that way, the positive in our mind outweighs the negative experiences that we have either been a part of, seen, or had to do.
Right. Hey, all right. So really, so this one wound up being about PTSD. I mean, I've learned you're talking about two different spectrums. Now I'm
Yeah.
realizing when when I was growing up, it was just my parents, just my mom and my dad. Um, but I was in a different situation. I
Mm-hmm.
was. I can't even remember vividly any time my mom and dad actually had an argument. The only time I heard them argue on anything happened to be when they were playing cards, because that was a big thing. Getting together for bid whist,
Okay,
and
okay,
arguing,
okay.
to arguing about why you didn't play this card or that,
Yeah,
something like that, because those are the conversations and stuff that I heard and stuff. Um, but some of that situation did not play out later on. Okay, but I
yeah,
wasn't around it. So that was part that I was never able to see. But as a teacher, especially when I was working in the traditional high school, uh, we didn't get into the baggage that kids were bringing, that they were leaving at home. When
yeah,
I shifted to the alternative school, we realized that if a student was struggling, like for instance, if I had a student who failed all his math, there's a reason. One, if he
yeah,
wasn't showing up, that could be part of a reason. Okay. The other reason
definitely.
that there was reasons why the why, and part and most of it was because of the trauma events that was in their life, that mom and dad. So I realized that you had kids were actually are gay or lesbian. They were in the closet. And they were afraid to come out, or they were being bullied out on the
Yep,
regular campus. You had girls that had were getting pregnant. And
yep,
so hiding the pregnancy was one of the problems. But you also had, which the vast majority of them, you've also had, I've had kids whose mom or dad, especially more likely the mom for the most time, that found out they got diagnosed with cancer, either breast cancer
Yeah.
or another form of cancer, and they were dealing with it. Of course, you had the kids that had severe learning disabilities, but you also had the kids that the trauma informed things with things that was happening at home. Mom and dad having domestic violence, where you're right, what
Hmm.
you said, what you observed at a young age, having your stepfather up or beat the heck out of your mom. That is an event that stays there, and that's a traumatic event. I mean, how do you see that, and then you're being dropped off to school? How do you block that out? Okay,
You can't.
you can't. You
like,
can't.
like,
It's
like,
it's
you're supposed to be like, oh, all right, cool, and then you do what you do, and then, in all honesty, I believe that that's why, on a certain level, I am the way that I am, and how I can at certain times just seem like I am just completely emotionless
Mhm.
is because I've seen so much stuff, been through so much drama and everything else. I'm eventually just like, whatever, I don't care anymore. Just like you become this hollow shell of an individual instead of actually being this joyful abundance you're supposed to be. So instead of being this light, bright and shining, you end up being this dim spot, and it just drowns everybody else out. It brings everybody else down instead of being the opposite and being this positive person that, on for most levels, what they want to say is a normal person is supposed to be. And so, yeah, but yeah.
Thanks for watching and listening to episode 3 of season 2 as Dr. Smith and his son Jordan III opened their hearts by sharing their experience with the discovery about living with PTSD. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook. See you during the next episode as they discuss other talk that fathers and sons should have about men's health. Until then, this is Dr. Smith, and I challenge you to open up the dialogue with the men in your family. Let's change the narrative and begin building a legacy of wellness and generational wealth.
Love bears such a thin disguise. It should come at no surprise. Come, compromise. Once bitten, twice as shy. It's a case of roll the dice. So we should in and compromise. Compromise? I don't think so. It's not a war we wanna fight. There ain't the way to put things right. It's not about who's keeping score. Let's talk about it, don't close the door. If you won't change, I won't change. And everything remains the same. And I won't play this losing game. Cause that's when love goes down the drain. Come, compromise. Let me give you just a little advice. Love wears such a thin disguise. It should come at no surprise. Come, compromise. Once bitten, twice as shy. It's a case of roll the dice, so we could bid and compromise. Yeah, she's got it, like she's talking, wandering all around here. And when she's do it like that, and baby, them hips, them thighs, them eyes sitting pretty and fat. Maybe you could call it styling. I'm a Mustang wailing, but I'm profiling. So let's just get a moment of silence as she walks by with a glint in her eye. Oh, come, compromise. Let me give you a little advice. Love wears up in the sky. It should come at no surprise. Come, compromise. Once bitten, twice as shy. It's a case of roll the dice, so we jump in and compromise. Oh, come, compromise. Let me give you a little advice. Love wears up in the sky. It should come at no surprise. Can't come, compromise. Once bitten, twice as shy. It's a case of roll the dice, so we should bid and compromise.